Hey everybody, Josh here. I'm going to show you the other half of the library that we introduced last week, which showed you how to use OAuth with your Flex projects and to have your authentication go through that route. This is the other portion of the library which actually access our recently released REST API. And so this allows you, if you use OAuth with the REST API, this library actually can serve as a standalone connection to your Force.com instance from your Flex project. So what I have here is a test project in Flash Builder 4.5, and this project actually includes the Force.com REST kit and also some Adobe libraries, and I'll get into those libraries in a little bit, but let me just show you the project really quick so you can see just kind of a roundup of some of the functionality we have here. Now this is very ugly, absolutely no time went into user interface design here, but if I log in, we just go right in through OAuth and we get a refresh token, we get a valid access token. You can see I have this test user record here. This is just a 5 basically random contacts I'm pulling down from my instance, and I'm actually just going to delete that record. You can see it's taken off the list, so anytime I do any of these, we're doing a refresh data function on the successful result handler, and that will pull back the new data, but let's put that back in. So this is just going to create a contact with the last name of test user. You can see that it pulls that back in. And then if I select the same row and hit update phone, it will go ahead and put some test data in for the phone. So some very basic functionality. Okay, so now let's take a look at the code itself. It's fairly lightweight actually. Once I have my OAuth connection set up, and we went through some of those steps in the earlier video, I can create my REST connection. My REST connection has the ability to be authenticated and refresh its tokens. So after that, I'm logged in. I don't really need to worry about that again. And I have the query method here, so I can just hand in a SOCL statement, and from there I give it an asynchronous responder. So an asynchronous responder will give it a result function and then an error function. And this is very similar to the way the SOAP toolkit and a lot of actually Flex frameworks work. So this is probably familiar to people who are familiar with developing ActionScript in general. And our handle result is just going to fill out the data provider by casting the resulting information from an array into an array collection. Now, for some of the other basic functionality that we saw there, to create a contact, I can just create a generic object, and I'm going to update the a last name here. I'm going to create the last name based on our text field, and then from the library, I can use the create method, and I give it the type so that we know exactly what URL to go to in the REST API itself. And I hand it the object information, so the data that I want that contact to be created with. Now update works in pretty much the exact same manner, so I create an object, I add in any field that I want to update for the object that I'm going to update, and then actually in a separate parameter I hand in the ID. And this is just this is the way that the REST API sees the data. If you add the ID into the object you're trying to update, it will tell you that you can't update the ID field, so might be able to make that a little bit smoother in an update to the library coming up. The other one that requires a little bit of explanation is the delete function. Now the delete function is fairly simple to use. The thing is though, if you need to do delete, you will need to install 3 different libraries to include into the project. And the reason for that is because out of the box, Flex and Flash Builder 4.5 and they don't support the delete method for HTTP requests. Now a lot of REST APIs use not just post and get to create and get information. They'll also use, for instance, we use patch for our update method. We, however, have a workaround so that you can use post as the method and then just basically tell it you want the patch method instead. And we actually do that flip on our side. We don't have such a workaround right now in the Force.com REST API for delete. So in order to use delete, I had to use a third-party HTTP library. So that's why there's this AS3 HTTP client lib, AS3 core lib, and AS3 crypto. These are some very well-known libraries. You may have already used them in your existing projects, but since they are active or semi-active, they're not part of this actual library. So the delete request is a little bit different and kind of exists on its own, so that if you want to use the other pieces of functionality without it, you don't need to worry about those libraries. Once you have those libraries, you can create a new delete request object. You just hand it your REST connection, so you don't have to reset any OAuth information or any of that kind of information. And then from there, you can do delete object, and at this point it works pretty much the same. So you just give it the ID of the object that you want to delete, the object type, and then the asynchronous responder itself. So two methods that I'm not currently using in the test project, I may add them in on a later date, but the two fairly important methods that we're not demonstrating here. One is get object by ID. So if you know the object type and the object ID, you can go ahead and just send those two pieces of information back, and you pretty much get every field in the system about that particular record within your data. And if you need to do like a full screen, if you want to get all the details about a contact or an account, it's a great and easy way to do that. Get file by URI. So if you actually have binary data, maybe it's associated through a chatter feed or something like that, you give it the URL to the actual file within the system. The library will do all of the authentication so that it's properly secure, and then it will bring down the actual binary data. So this is the only method in the library where you will get a binary object back, as opposed to either just an array or a generic ActionScript object itself describing your result. So hopefully that was informative for everybody. It's kind of the other portion of this library, and using this information, the information from the previous video, you do have a standalone library. If you want to access your Force.com instance using OAuth and REST, you can do that with just the code that you've seen here. So for more information, your one-stop shop for Force.com is always developer.force.com. Our official GitHub is at DeveloperForce, and the actual REST library will be at DeveloperForce/RESTKit. I will also point to this test project, which will be on my personal GitHub. It's not going to really be part of the DeveloperForce account, and I'll have that in the documentation and in the comments of this video. And if you want to catch up with me, you can catch me on Twitter at Josh Burke. Thanks a lot, everybody, and have a wonderful day.